Okay. Adam, it's a different background. So exciting. And even a headset. Wow.
Yeah, so I decided that instead of just using a green screen to imitate an office, I'd go and commandeer an entire office building for tonight's meeting.
Neato.
Not as neat as it sounds. I have no internet at home, so I have to go into my closed office in order to attend tonight's meeting and actually function as a web developer.
Wow.
And then Gina, I know it's probably on the invite, but I don't have it in front of me. Did you invite Ia or no? I have both my screens occupied right now.
I feel like I would have for the strategic plan, but I can go and check right now.
Oh, it's no worries. I was just checking.
Okay, yeah, let me check.
Hello.
Hey.
Nope. Yeah, we certainly want somebody to take minutes.
Yes. And I have I'm all ready to rock with agenda and everything.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hey, Rob, you don't know. Can we motion out of tonight? Gina was thinking no. So a few people, can we or no? Can we if we're discussing, can we make a motion out of tonight or do we have to call a special meeting? Oh, I think you're muted.
And Michelle, I did invite Ia, but she did not say yes.
Invite who? Oh, yeah. Wait, Rob, I think you're muted.
My understanding is that if I take myself off mute, you can hear me better. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. My understanding is that we have to vote on an agenda. And if we decide at the beginning of the meeting that we would like to have the opportunity to make a motion, that if we put that in the agenda and approve that agenda, that we can make a motion.
Are we sure we can do that though? Because for special meetings, the agendas have to be posted 3 days prior, and I do not think that they can be changed.
That's right. I don't live in this world of open meeting. I live in the world of higher education where it's not an open meeting thing. So that's a great, that, Gina, I hear you.
Okay.
So I think what it's safe to do is if we decide that we want a motion, that you create another meeting for 3 days, and the only agenda item is that we're going to vote on the motion that we decide and all roughly agree on tonight. That is the safe way to do it, for sure.
That sounds good.
That's what I thought, yeah.
It also doesn't really slow anything down as long as we're all kind of in alignment, right? Unless somebody were to change their mind, which could happen. I mean, we can still say what we're going to do and then just dot the T's, in 3 days, right? Cross the T's, dot the I's.
Yep, that sounds good. Let me see. I'm just kind of looking around here. So, no. Oh, Paula's coming in too. Hey, Paula, how are you? So I'll wait for John to say hi with the video, and then we'll start, because I think it is 6 o'clock, isn't it? And I think that's everybody. There's a lot of schools feeling this pain too. What are we gonna do, right?
Yeah, I have a friend that's on the school board at Richfield, as I've said before, and there's a lot of pressure because Bloomington is jumping in head first, and they don't care what's going to happen. They're just jumping in head first. And so Richfield's feeling the pressure of doing it, but they don't want to jump in head first. And so there's a lot of angst out there.
Yeah, I know it's been a rough year for sure. Well, I'll wait for John. Hey, John, are you there? I guess we have to have John here, right? I think so. 'Cause he's got to start. Maybe he's eating a
What's
little
funny is
dinner.
he's not on, though. He's not. He's on mute. Oh, I think he's coming on a different device. There must be something wrong.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for John. We'll be a couple minutes late.
Two directors for the price of one.
Yeah. There he is. Hey, John. That is like a bad time for this to go. You there? No? Oh, there you
Can
are.
you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a great time for your computer to crash.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, I'm going to call to order our special meeting. It is 6:02, and I would like for Paula, if you would, since you're here, to read the mission vision.
Our mission, we provide accelerated curricula in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science. Vision to be innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence that creates well-rounded, lifelong learners and global citizens.
Thank you, Paula. You know, you show up to everything, Paula. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and roll call our members. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Lee Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Krakowski,
Yes.
Tina Albers,
Yes.
Adam Bard,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. Paula Acapo,
Yes.
okay, and John Gurecki.
Yes.
All right, so we have well, Jenny Abs is not here. She's a ex officiato, so, but everyone else is here. Welcome. Okay, so I would like to motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I can second. This is Dan.
Okay. And discussion. So tonight we're going to discuss opening up partial in person and some of the documents provided in a statement and maybe a recommendation from Mr. Gurecki. So I guess that's how we'll start is what I'd like to do tonight is actually just, before we really talk about motions or anything else, is to have John talk about some things he has planned to talk about and, possibly a recommendation, and then to maybe go around and have everyone just talk about how they feel, and if you have a position, to talk about your position and why. And so as we go around, maybe we can find out kind of how we all feel, maybe change our mind if we're thinking one thing because we hear more than one person saying something else, and just at the end of that to see if we have a consensus. And if we do have a consensus, let's write up a motion together. And then just to be safe, we'll go ahead and schedule a quick open meeting for 3 days from now to approve it. And, all right, does that sound good, Board of Directors? All right. So John, would you like to open up?
Yeah, I sure would. Thank you very much. First, before we get started, I just would like to thank the board for calling the special meeting and for your professionalism and avoidance of some things that I've observed on other boards, that being mostly some microaggressions and subtle accusations that are very counterproductive. And I really enjoy working for a board that doesn't have those types of behaviors in it. So I guess I would just like to thank you for not engaging in those. And then another thing I would like to thank is really, before we get into this, our students, our staff, and our parents have really been phenomenal. And we've gotten to this point. I'm going to kind of throw this back towards Mr. Kruger, because at the beginning in August, he said something that really has stuck with me still today, and is he really wanted to pick one learning mode and do it real well. And I think we've done distance learning extremely well. I think it's a model that a lot of schools are envious of. But that's not to say that, this is something that we should carry out throughout the rest of the school year. The fundamental driver of all of this has been safety. Really, it's safety for our students, safety for our staff, and safety for our families. That has always been my number one concern, and I think the board shares that concern as well. So we have to keep everybody safe while educating our students. For many of our students, distance learning has been okay. Some actually have thrived in it. And we know now, as we've gotten more data, that distance learning is not for everybody. And we do have a fair amount of students that are struggling with it, be it academic struggles, social struggles, or emotional struggles. So that's something we have to always be mindful of. And it weighs very heavily on my mind. I know it probably weighs very heavily on all the board members' minds as well. Now that we understand COVID a little better, we have more data. The science is adjusting to that data. And that's one thing to always keep in mind. We're a science-driven institution, and our society runs on science, and science changes. And COVID-19 is no different. So as the science changes, it's up to us to adjust. And I think we need to adjust as we learn new facts and new information. Fundamentally, I think we're always looking forward to go forward. We keep moving, keep progressing. And that's what I guess I want to focus on tonight, is moving forward. And when we move forward, we still have to put a lot of trust. We trust things all the time, whether we really think about it or not. But trust is really essential to the success of any organization, and it's going to be essential to our continued progress. I've heard from many of our parents and from staff members, and mostly a lot of parents whose children are not doing well. I really want them, I'm sure a lot of them are listening, I want them to know that, that has not fallen on deaf ears. I feel and hear your pain as I read the emails and talk with you on the phone. It weighs very heavily on my heart and on my mind. So I just want to acknowledge those people that have sent emails or phone calls in. It does weigh on our decision making. It's not easy. It's been a long path, and we're going to continue to let science drive us forward. As I see that, last week the CDC came out with some new information, and that was all based on science. And as we know, science changes. Originally, a CDC came out with 3 guidelines, and it's been about a year already. So if you remember what the 3 things they said when they first came out, and they're still true today: mask up, follow social distancing, and wash your hands. Those are the 3 first things that they came out with to beat this, and they're still valid today. In fact, those are the 3 fundamental things that everything is predicated on. And we as a society are trusting each other to do those things. If we don't, we will pay the consequences. Sometimes you can get away with it because there may not be any COVID in the area, and other times you may get inflicted or be a carrier and then inflict others if you're not following that. With that science, then some social distancing mandates have changed. Originally, when we started in the fall, we had a 6-foot mandate. The information that came out last week has softened that. They still want you to social distance as much as possible, but for high school, they've come up with now a 3-foot mandate. They want 6 feet when it's feasible, but if it's not feasible, they are allowing a 3-foot mandate. So that is a little bit of a game changer as the adjustment in close contact has been. Before, when close contact came out, it wasn't the criteria that we have now. The criteria that we have for close contacts now is 15 minutes of contact with a person within 6 feet. So if you're outside of 6 feet, you don't count any minutes. Even if the person it turns out to be positive, you're only counting that time that they're within 6 feet. And if it's up to over 15 minutes, they're a close contact. They originally came out, wear a mask. And then the science changed. No, you should wear a mask and a shield. And now we're back to wear a mask. And if you have a shield, you should think about wearing that. But a shield is not mandatory anymore. When it comes to cleaning and materials, that's the 4th area basically that the CDC is come up. There's 3 areas that are really you should look at. There's not necessarily any particular requirements on all of these, but if you're in a hybrid scenario, you should have some kind of a material pickup, or if you're in distance learning, and we do that very well. If you're handing out documents and are going to reuse them, the idea is to laminate them to make them non-porous, and then to look at your air exchange and your room purification. While there are no requirements to ventilation, there are a lot of recommendations. And then the last part, that's really the 5-prong approach from the CDC, is contact tracing. Currently now with the new guidelines, every time we have a lunchroom scenario, you would have students sitting in the same seating so that you can contact trace them. You do that same thing in your classrooms. And if you can, you want to arrange students in cohort. Basically, the idea is within 24 hours, if you've been notified that you have a positive case, that you can contact all of those people within 24 hours that may be a close contact, so you don't have a spread. So those are some of the things that have kind of changed as we've gone through and where we're at. Before I get into my recommendations of where to go, if you looked at the information, which is now way outdated, that was presented to the board last Tuesday, there were basically 3 obstacles or challenges or roadblocks, however you want to describe it, that we had to going back to in person. And those really came down to our transportation, just the time it takes to get the buses rolling and the students on the buses, the broadband, mostly focusing on building C and D because they're wireless and they're not connected. So how much can we upload and transmit between the buildings? And then the staffing. We're going to need, and we do need classroom monitors to cover those classes where we have staff that can't come on campus due to medical conditions, either for themselves or their families. So those are the 3 real big stumbling blocks or obstacles. So I'd like to kind of address those three, and after I do that, then I'll share, I guess, my recommendations of what I think the board and the school should do. In the area of transportation, that we learned late last week that when we gave 833 our original busing routes, they did build busing routes based on that. So, and that is one of the reasons why we didn't go back and ask parents if they want to now be in person if they chose to be distance learning. And when we did that original survey, we said, if you choose distance learning, you're going to be in distance learning. What 833 did was took that list and built a busing route. So the time frame for getting the busing in place has shrunk considerably. So we could get busing before the spring break if we wanted to. It would be very close to the end of spring break, but we could get busing provided we don't change the list of students that we provided to 833. The broadband issue is a little more challenging in that we can get enough broadband to building C and D as long as we don't have it's basically about 20 devices live streaming at one time. That's going to max out our system and probably cause it not to function. So the way we would need to solve that, and that problem doesn't necessarily go away even with a fiber optic cable. It just expands our capability. But to solve that issue, or I guess to try and mitigate that problem, what we would have to do in building C and D is we'd have to adjust our teaching style in that students would not be able to be on their laptops and live stream. The teachers still could. So the teachers can live stream in building C and D. The students would not be able to do that. So in essence, the students would be going back to school like they would be in the fall. They would actually be going to attend the class and listen to the teacher. The teacher would be projecting their Zoom or whatever they have on their laptop onto a screen, so the students watching it, participating directly with the teacher, thereby increasing that social interaction that a lot of students say they have been missing. The other part of having students do that, it will mitigate the back feed or the problem that you have when you have all these microphones on in the same room and you get that big feedback that kind of blows your ears out. That would mitigate that problem because you don't have all these laptops on with all these speakers. Now, with that said, that could also be a problem in buildings A and B, because if those students are on their laptops while the teacher's live streaming, the potential is there because you've got all these devices with mics on where you could have a lot of back feed. So that's something we won't know until we get students back on campus. You know, the quick mitigation is when students are on campus, you don't have your mic on. And then if you're in building C and D, you don't have your laptop on until it's time to asynchronously participate or work on something. And even then, we probably aren't going to be live streaming in building C and D. You might be able to look things up on the internet, but you're not going to be able to live stream. Which will mean if teachers are doing breakout rooms, those breakout rooms are literally going to happen in the classroom. So that is one way we can work around the broadband issue. The other part that we have to solve is the staffing issue. So far, last Friday, I sent out a survey to, it was basically an email to all of the parents. And then I asked them to contact me if they were interested in being a classroom monitor. The idea here, though, is not to piecemeal it. you have to remember we're still in a pandemic. We want to minimize the number of people that are being that are interacting. So we don't want to have 4 people covering one class, because now you've got 4 more people on campus when you could only have, in a regular situation, you'd have 1. So we have, as of today, as of a half an hour ago, we have one person from MSA that stepped up and said they could work, and actually filled out the application, which is on our careers page, that they would be willing to go through the interview process and be a classroom monitor. We have that, it's posted on Indeed. As of right now, I've had 15 applicants, albeit some of them are from out of state, and some of them don't have more than a high school or a GED education. So just 15 sounds like a lot of number, but then when you start to scrutinize some of the applicants, you get a lot of numbers, but they may not be the quality that you're looking for. But I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to find enough monitors to cover the staff that are not going to be able to be on campus. So when I get to my recommendation, you really have, it comes down to trusting science. You really have to trust science. And I was talking with Mrs. Froberg today, and she had mentioned something, and if I really hope I don't put a curse on our basketball team by saying this, but they practice 2 hours next to each other. There's 22 of them, 22 participants in the gym for 2 hours, wearing a mask, sweating next to each other. And so far we've had 0 cases. So that is just, that's anecdotal information, but masks, wearing masks works. So you really have to trust the science. If we come back in person, partial in person, we're going to have about a total of 210 students coming on campus. On a Monday, Tuesday scenario, we'll have about 112 students. On a Wednesday, Thursday scenario, we'll have about 88 students. So we're not talking massive amounts of numbers. You got to remember that's spread across 4 buildings. So we're not going to have 20 students in a classroom. The biggest classroom that we're going to have is probably going to have 9 or 10 at the extreme tops. Most classes are going to have 6 and 5 in them. So my recommendation to the board is that on March 3rd, so that's next week on Wednesday, we start to have teachers coming back on campus for 2 days to live stream their classes so we can test the technology to make sure live streaming works for them. Friday, would be a regular Win Friday. So that gives us some time. If there is something that we discover that doesn't work, that gives us all spring break to work through it. It also gives us some time if teachers identify something that they need, that gives us some time to make sure we get it for them so they have it ready to go. Then we go on spring break. After spring break, we come back, we have a 4-day week, because that Monday there's no school. On the 16th and 17th would be teacher transition days, where we discuss with the teachers procedures, help them get acclimated to campus, and the procedures that they would follow when students come aboard. On Thursday and Friday, the 18th and 19th, those would also be transition days. You have to also remember, students haven't been on campus. Most of the teachers have not been on campus either. So it's going to take a little bit to transition back to seeing other people, to working with people, to getting used to the masks. So that whole week after spring break, we would have transition days. the Thursday and the Friday, so the 18th and 19th, from 3:30 to 6, we would have what I call open school, or an open house, if you want to think of it that way, for new students to come in and get acclimated to the school to find out where the classrooms are. I don't think there's a reason for a 10th grader that's been here since 6th grade to come on campus just to see if their friends are around. Although I really want them to be, have the opportunity to socialize, that's not the function for that time frame. That's the time for new students to come in, find out where are all these, where are all these rooms, where's the restroom. Okay, follow my schedule so I have a good idea of where I'm going. Then on March 22nd, we would start in-person school. That's 2 weeks earlier than we had originally kind of targeted for the board. So we would start on March 22nd. That first week would mostly be a lot of onboarding because it's going to take some adjustment for students and teachers and staff to get used to seeing other people and being around them again. And developing, routines and making sure that we have all the protocols and we're following them so that we can stay safe. Then following at the board meeting on the 19th, we would review our data to see if we want to go to a what we'd call an all in-person school where we'd have classes Monday through Thursday. We would still keep Win Fridays because we're going to have students that are going to be distance learning. I want to keep those Win Fridays for the teachers because we are mandated to have 2.5 hours of planning time for them. So they would definitely have that time on those Fridays. So I guess open for questions, or I don't know if you want to go around and talk about this. Or...
I think we will. We'll go ahead and go around. And I'll just start from the top of my agenda, except for I'll go last. So Dan, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, John. And thanks for all the thought that you put into this over these past many months. And also thanks to the board. I think we've done a good job of managing the information that we have and making the decisions we did that were not the easy ones. They were what we felt was the right one. So I feel like we're ready. I think it's time for us to get going back. I know it's not easy, and I know we're all probably a little bit anxious. We got teachers anxious, we got students anxious, but I think we just got to get over that little anxiety hump and get back into a new groove. So I feel like, without belaboring it too much, I think now is the time to bring students and teachers back on campus, and we're going to do it safely. And we're going to learn. The first week or two, we're going to have some bumps. We're going to miss a few things here or there, but as long as it's not big, which I feel we've addressed a lot of the big issues, we're going to have some small ones and we'll get through them. So I don't think it's fair to continue to plan until we have a 100% perfect plan, because we won't. So we need to get going back and get the folks rolling back in again that want to. So that's where I'm at. So I'm happy to be a part of this board, and I think we've done a good job so far.
All right, thanks, Dan. Cody?
I like the plan. I like the timeline. My only concern is I know some teachers had that April 5th number in their head coming back. So we're bumping them up 2 weeks. And I hope we're giving them enough notice that if this is what we go with, they can make it work. Because it wouldn't be fair for a teacher to expect that of a student to turn in a project 2 weeks early. And I feel like kind of applies here too. But I'm hoping we can make it work.
All right, thanks, Cody. Michelle Krakowski?
Okay, I will say I understand the idea of going back, and I think that there's a lot of rationale for it. I don't think that there's a lot of rationale for pushing it up as soon as it is, notably the fact that the staff won't be vaccinated. So I understand that the vaccination itself is a factor for a lot of the teachers. And one of the reasons why, as they were looking and as they were saying, yes, I would come in for hybrid, a lot of it was conditional, especially on the idea that by then we would be vaccinated. And so then, that was a factor for a lot of individuals that could be a game changer for them. The other factor for a lot of the staff and for the students I know is that a comfort level that the issues actually have been addressed. I have a list of 23 questions about the plan that aren't addressed right now. And so it's not, again, that they can't be, but they need to be. A full plan is still what we need. And so additional like signage and stuff isn't there. I'm talking about a standardized cleaning plan. I'm talking, like things that we have to know like every day. This is what you do each hour. This is what's done every night. This is when the cleaning crews come in, like those kinds of things. Standard documentation forms. If we're supposed to have a log in, log out for going to the bathroom and stuff, where is the standardized forms? Where is this? These are the things that we need. So when it comes to it, pushing it up, I feel sad because I know that we're never going to make everybody happy. I know there's a whole bunch of people that want to go back to school, and to the degree that they threaten to leave MSA if they don't. There's a whole bunch of people that want to wait because they don't feel safe, to the degree that they want to leave MSA if we vote to go back. So no matter what, there's going to be a whole chunk of people that truly are leaving MSA because they don't feel valued and they don't feel cared for. So there is no way for us to make a decision that would actually help everybody. But I think there's things we can do to make people feel like they are more safe, to make the students feel like they're more safe, knowing that we have a full plan, that we've purchased extra filtration, like standalones for the classrooms, that we've double checked and fixed the windows, these kinds of things that were identified. And for the staff to be vaccinated, for us to understand and have time, like Cody said, to adjust. I'm a teacher in D. My full plan was being able to synchronize my classes similar to what I'm doing now. And now I have to change all of those ideas. So those are concerns. Yeah, I just wish that I had a bit, I know about our numbers and I understand the overview, but as a teacher, like the hourly and daily kind of small bits, there's a lot of them. And so that's where my concern comes in. Not that I don't want to see my students, I do. I love my students. I want to see them very, very badly. But again, just voicing concerns from both of our unfortunately very polar opposites. They need to feel valued. It's just that what makes them feel valued is in opposition.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Gina Albert.
I actually wrote mine down, so apologies. But for me, I think we also need to stick to April 5th for a full hybrid reopening. We had agreed on this date because we knew with spring break and traveling that cases would be higher. And I think we can all agree that we would like to stay open once we do open. Furthermore, I also do not want any staff who haven't received their first dose, let alone their second dose of the vaccine, to be forced to come back. If we wait until April 5th, though, many will have the max protection, and I'm hoping those currently still waiting to get their first dose will have the opportunity to get that. And I think there might even be a way to keep those not fully protected by the time we open at home, because I think with the creative minds of the staff, we can come up with a potential solution. For instance, I personally should have max protection after spring break, and I would be willing to monitor students of teachers who are not yet vaccinated. I would do that to help both the students and my colleagues. I just think to have everyone go back now or right after spring break is putting almost all of us at greater risk than if we were to wait. And one concern, like Michelle mentioned, is that recent number of all but 7 willing to go back was based on that April 5th timeline. And by having us go back earlier before we are protected, that number could totally go back up. And I know there are some teachers who are willing to come back. And again, I think there are solutions out there to get the struggling students on campus before April 5th, while still waiting to go the full partial in person. And I know there have been arguments to go back because other schools are, but I look around and see that we haven't lost a single staff member. And I think that's truly a remarkable feat. People have been leaving other schools because of stress. And if you think about having us go back before we have full protection, even a first dose, that's going to cause a massive spike in stress, let alone the stress that's going to inevitably happen for the loss of curriculum and not being protected. And the logistics of going hybrid. Really, I just can't imagine any of my colleagues being harmed. We are so close to getting vaccinated. It's just a matter of weeks. And although I think we should wait, again, I think there are interim solutions that we can figure out as a staff. We have such great brain power. We can figure out a way to help the students. On a side note, I think there are several staff who are willing to monitor students who are not willing to come back in a way to help with the monitor situation. And there were also thoughts discussed at the teacher meeting and staff meeting of potentially teachers covering during their preps, and maybe that would help save the school money. So anyways, I think we can get creative, but my thoughts are April 5th as well. Thanks. Sorry, that was long.
Thanks, Gina. Adam, Bart?
I concur with both Michelle and Gina for April 5th. They've mentioned a number of things that I was prepared to state as well. My biggest concern is the yo-yoing the students after spring break, because we saw that happen to a lot of other schools in the fall where they had open and hybrid. The numbers at their school or their community raised above the threshold for distance learning. The students went to distance learning, then the numbers fell, they came back to hybrid, they went up again, they went back to distance learning. The students do not deserve to be tossed back and forth like a commodity because of the issues that arise with COVID-19. We need to stick to a plan and move forward with it. And I don't think that moving to hybrid right now is the right time.
Thank you, Adam. Rob?
Yes, thank you, all of you. This is hard. We are on the board at a very difficult time, and we have to make difficult choices. I will speak from experience. I have been in the classroom every day since fall. We have had zero transmission cases on our campus. The CDC says there is no outright vulnerability to teachers in a high school when social distancing is practiced and masks are worn. That being said, I understand fear. I understand, wanting to do what's right for the staff because I'm a staff, just not at this institution. But I think the kids and their mental health has been taxed. And I appreciate John saying that I was a high advocate of doing distance learning fully from the beginning because we had no way of doing hybrid. We were not ready. We were well behind the curve at that time. But 8 months have passed. And so we should have solid plans knowing what we're doing in this 8 months. And, whether it's April 5th or before, I think it can be done, and I think it can be done safely. And I expect that everybody work as hard as they can to help these kids because there are some real mental health issues that we're sweeping under the rug, and it's time to address them.
Thanks, Rob. Jennifer?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I like the plan. I think it's a great idea. I really want the kids to be back in school. The only thing I would ask is that those kids that chose distance in the fall, if they could have the option of coming back as well, because in the fall they weren't sure maybe that they would be struggling. So I think that they should have the option to come back, even if transportation might be an issue, maybe the parents would be willing to drive them. So I think we should go forward. I think it sounds like a great plan and I'm excited about it.
All right, Maggie?
I also wrote mine down. So on Friday, the MSA staff met so we could provide the board with questions and concerns they have about coming back, just so that these things are addressed moving forward for opening. To be blunt, they're long lists. I can share the 6-page document with each of you if you would like. You can let me know later. So some of the highlights of the concerns include the amount of time lost for curriculum and planning days, as well as the days spent teaching the kids MSA COVID protocols, especially 6th graders, and AP classes will definitely be affected by planning days and missing school. The majority of our students are electing to remain in distance learning, and teaching with a mask and face shield on Zoom will make communication more difficult. Teachers may need to change the way they teach distance learning once they're on campus, so parents need to be aware of that. If they have happened to have chose distance learning, it might look incredibly different once we reach campus. Monitoring the hallways during passing time will not allow for classrooms to be cleaned by teachers between classes, nor for EAs to arrive to class on time. This will also make taking attendance for the distance and in-person students at the same time difficult. Teachers' mental health and morale is already low. Some are considering leaving education. Teachers who've not had a chance to get vaccinated feel disrespected and only have a handful of substitute teachers who are willing to come in. Their questions include, what happens if there is a positive teacher COVID case? What if it's a positive student case? How many positive cases means we have to return to distance learning? Are parents aware some classes will have 1 or 2 students in person and the rest of the class is distance learning? Are parents aware some teachers have 0 students present during certain class periods? Will we have enough supplies, materials, and technology to make this work? Is there a complete plan for coming back partially in person? When will we have our 30 minutes a day of state mandated prep time? What are the actual capabilities of the internet in C&D? Why does the governor's order state that employees can work from home when they should? And don't classroom monitors need to be licensed teachers? There are a lot of things to consider, more than I've mentioned, and we need to have a firm plan in place before partially in-person learning can occur. However, because, and nobody's mentioned this yet, we have to have MCA testing in person. It's imperative we come up with a plan for students and teachers alike. We've heard from a parent today, we need to do our best to be creative and to be resourceful. And it's important to remember, we're not a large district. We do not have the money or staffing to accommodate in-person protocols easily. Saying other districts are doing something does not mean we can do it in the same way or that we should do it in the same way. What works for larger districts is unlikely to work for MSA, and we don't have the budget to make a lot of these issues disappear. Again, we need to be creative and resourceful when making decisions about returning to campus. I am interested in discussing the number of days staff need to prepare to come on campus, room setups, taking on students of teachers who are not physically at MSA, rolling starts, alternative schedules, having COVID protocols in place. I also agree April 5th is more likely to make all that happen. And I understand where Dan's coming from and that nothing is going to be perfect, but you're talking to a bunch of type A people who are in charge of their own curriculum. And it's hard to hear that you can't finish what you need when you've planned.
All right. Thank you, Maggie. All right, I guess me. Before the teacher meeting, it was like full on, yeah, let's get kids back. But I'm a risk taker. I've told you about that. I still believe we need to get kids back. They're really suffering. But to think about, most of the staff have not been to MSA in a year. They have not showed up and taught for a year. So it's like they're scared. It's like, we're going to open up in 2 weeks. And so I've been there, so I understand. And I also can say to my teacher, people out there, it's really not as hard as you might think. It's just scary. I can't believe how it's pretty adaptable, pretty amazingly adaptable. But I do also think I was all for let's just go, but I feel April 5th probably would be the best scenario for all of these things getting kind of ironed out and teachers feeling more comfortable. They're very uncomfortable. They haven't been on campus and they want it bad. And I don't know, it kind of broke my heart, honestly, Friday or whenever we got together to listen to the worries and the not knowing. We don't know. We don't know like COVID procedures. We don't know what quarantine is. We don't know any of this. It's not, I'm judging it. I know I'm grumpy sometimes, people, but we don't know what it looks like. We I'm sure we'll be trained and will make us all feel better. But I'm a risk taker. I don't care. I'll go in. But you know what? Not everyone's like me. And that's what I learned listening to my teachers. So, and staff also. So I feel kids need it. I just feel brokenhearted. Honestly, I was telling Gina, I feel like this is my first thing I can really say I want to vote abstention, because it's so tearing to me. And she's like, you are not voting abstent. You can't do that. I said, I know. But honestly, that's what my heart feels, because I'm torn. But John, that was a good pitch. I like the program. I don't know. I don't know we have everything in place for me that I've seen detailed enough in the plan that we have to have that staff would feel comfortable. I'm always comfortable, but so that's where we're at. I think if we can talk and maybe come to some consensus, maybe work on a motion, get something in paper and call a special meeting. It sounds like everyone's wanting to at least, I mean, I'm glad we've got to get kids back. The timing, I feel, is the issue, right? I think. So let's start, board. What do you say?
Well,
Yes,
the
Michelle.
other thing, I think it is also really important, and I want to see the students on campus and I want to see them successful. So I think one of the elements, if we're thinking about motions or thinking about what we want to do, our timeline needs to include what will we do in the interim. So regardless of it, if we have a shorter timeline, we don't have a lot of interim time to do things. But if we're looking at something, or if the motion progresses more towards an April open, then in the meantime, we still have a lot of work to do to get our students some additional one-on-one opportunities, some areas, things like that, because there's still a need, and they're still going to need, an overnight shift isn't easy for them either. So we also still definitely need to kind of get some of those details figured out for students who are struggling in any number of different ways. Win Fridays are enrichment, but there's work there. There's things that we need to, again, I agree, be creative, use our brains, use the collective brains of the MSA community to figure out what we would do in those intervening few weeks to try to, again, help address some of the immediate needs that really are there. So like one way or another, if it's a short time span, then we are going to be able to act more immediately. If it's a longer time span, we gotta get creative.
Annie, if I could go quick. Yeah, so I think we're talking timing here. What I heard was a general consensus that we're going to try to move towards getting folks back, and I think it's just the timing. And I'm happy to hear that, because I think I'm glad to hear that it's just not one or two people fighting for it. We're all kind of generally moving in that direction. So that's great. I would be interested in knowing those, Michelle, you bring up good points. So do you, Maggie. Of course, everyone did. But in terms of all the concerns we have, but we've had now 8 months, if we go back to Robert's point. And so it's like, what is different with those 2 weeks versus starting March 22nd? And I'm not fighting for March 22nd. I don't think there's anything magical about that date. I like the thought process. I'm just trying to push us as a board to say, when do we finally kind of, I don't want to use that analogy, but when do we finally get going on this, right? It's like, I don't want to just keep kicking it down. And that's my point. It's not that I'm not also type A, Maggie, and trying to get everything done perfectly. We have to do it safely. I would never support a plan. I don't think any of us would if we felt that we had major holes. I think we have holes in whatever plan we have. And I'm just anxious about, if we say 2 more weeks later, how much more realistically are we going to have done versus if we actually started and then we would learn very quickly what's not working. And unfortunately, something could go wrong, but I think we put a lot of thought into the big issues, and there's going to be some small things like, and I don't mean to trivialize, but if it's a sign on a bathroom, or if it's whatever it is, we will get that, because we have smart people. We will get that figured out, and we can do that most of those things quickly. I think the big issues are the ones that John addressed, and those ones we have a plan for. We don't even have all those completely sorted yet. But I think the parents and the teachers need to be a little bit flexible and say, hey, we're going to go in and maybe we have some hiccups with internet, but we're doing the best that we can with the situation we have, and we'll come up with some solutions when they're presented for a problem. So that's it. I think if we did a motion on April 5th, I'm going to guess that most people would support that. If we did a motion for, say, March 22nd or an earlier date, fewer would support it. That's the more aggressive one. I get it. But that's my point. I would like to see us do sooner than later. And that's it.
Well, do you want to do a show of hands? Like if we said April 5th, who would write a motion for that tonight? Can I see show of hands?
I mean, I would do April 5th and I would do earlier.
Okay, well then I'll go early. Okay, so let's say, I mean, that way we could at least start. And how about show of hands for, what was that, the March 22nd? March 22nd? I would do it March 22nd. Okay, so it looks like we really are kind of at a April 5th. We want to be successful with emotions tonight, right? That's what we want to do. And so we had 4 at 22nd. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, it wasn't unmuting. I was actually just going to ask for one more vote, which would be, what if we did the transition the 29th and then opened the 5th? Just a third more show of hands, like a in between
Well, so if we opened up April 5th, we would assume that the transition's before that, right? Because we need 3
Okay,
days.
I just wasn't sure.
Is that right?
Yeah,
So while we're
okay.
talking opening, and then I don't know, then think back how many days for transition and all that. Those are the pieces. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like we're talking about a 2-week difference here. I feel like John's starting date for a transition, bringing people on campus. I know some of them don't have their vaccine, so that not everyone might be ready to come. But that starting date might still work for the April 5th. It just gives us an extra 2 weeks of implementation time. So some of the later stuff still towards the end in April, but some of the beginning stuff needs to get started. And I think that might be a good middle ground. I know it's more time to transition, and I don't know if the teachers would like that or they want less transition time, or I don't know. But
well, I think we only get a total of 5 days anyway, right, teachers? And so we don't want to use those all up in case we have to shut down and get sick. So they allow us 5 total days. I think the consensus is like if we had 3 days for the transition, then we'd get 2 parked somewhere in case something happens with shutting school down, and because we get 1 for every change. Yes, go ahead, John.
So we have 5 days, and we do our transitions mandatory that you do too, but we can petition for more if we used all 5 days to transition, and we had, heaven forbid, if we had to go transition again, but if we did, we can petition to get more, and MDE has been pretty lenient on that because they want that time to transition. So it'll be a matter of, I just have to contact MDE and say, we need 2 days to transition from here to here. So that don't let that number dictate that, because that's a flexible number, and MDE has said so.
Do transition days mean teachers are working on transitioning and students are not?
That's correct. The only problem is they're non-instructional days, but they count as instructional days, so you lose content.
So like AP kids would definitely be suffering in that element.
Okay. So can you clarify, the 16th and 17th would be transition days, and the 18th and 19th, what are those days?
So those all that week, that 4 days, those would be transition days.
Okay.
That was originally what I'd suggest.
Yeah.
Now, we can adjust that if you want to still look at that opening on April 5th, which originally we said that, we would talk about that at the regular board meeting on the 16th. That's doable. It's just, I guess I just need to know what you would like to do, and then we'll plan around it.
I would definitely want to hear more about when people are going to start doing all of this. I don't want to wait till April 5th and then say, okay, well, now we need 5 days, and now we need to check this, and now I would, if I would, agree to that, I want to hear more about what's happening. I can't say enough about what Dan said, is the sooner we get in, the more we find out about the problems. And this is about helping the kids. I want to keep the teachers safe, but again, I disagree as much as possible about the safety issue, except for those that have pre-existing conditions, and those are what the monitors and those kinds of things are for. So, but again, there's mistrust about, how to keep them safe, because we are to this point and we don't see a lot of transition happening at the school. I get all of those things, but there are plans, there are many models, many schools have been doing it all year long. And so that can be done. The sooner we get in and test those things, the better off we're going to be. Wouldn't it be great if we had no issues all the fourth quarter? The best way to guarantee that is to get in there and try things.
And it's a month away. We have a month from today before the 22nd. That's a lot of time to get some things going as far as vaccines and the teachers feeling more comfortable.
Well, I think it's access to the vaccine, Jennifer, and we have spring break in there. But I think, Rob, when we raised our hand on the 5th, this is at least my thoughts, was we start the 5th, which means everything beforehand is in prep and getting us rolled in and getting training and all that. So that's like the 5th is when buses show up, is what I thought.
So if you look on the calendar, we do not have school on April 2nd. So that week, that last week in March would be your transition week. Because you have 4 days. So you could take 4 days to transition, or, I mean, if you want to shorten that, you could. But with our block scenario, I think having 4 days to transition, and then that allows you to have 2 days to bring students in to get used to the campus and that type of thing. And then that Friday to just, absorb it and think about it, and then you crank it up on the 5th. That's what the board wants.
So again, I think we want to walk out of here with a successful motion. So do you want to try a hand raise to see, okay, with what you heard, 4 of us raised your hands for the 22nd. That's not enough. So we want to walk out of here successful, right? So has anyone changed their mind earlier to the 22nd? Right. And how about the 5th? Who on the 5th for sure would raise their hand? Okay. So, yeah.
Wait a minute. Well, that didn't make any sense. to me.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
What
what
was
I'm
going
saying
on?
is we did a show of hands to open up on the 22nd per John's. So 4 of us raised our hands. That's not enough. So I want to walk out of here with a motion, right? So it was, I think you, me, Dan, Jennifer said, okay, I'd be up for the 22nd, but that's then there's more to have buses roll in on the 22nd means everything was done prior to that, Rob. So we got
Yeah. So I want
we
to
had
hear
staff
more from the teachers why we have to wait till the 5th. Why there's something magic about the 5th as opposed to trying to get this rolling early. Why do we think that 1 extra week we're going to have a miraculous amount of vaccines and those kinds of things? Why would we hold this off? I just want to hear from the teachers because you guys were at that meeting.
For me personally,
Maggie is having internet problems.
Yeah.
I guess for me, like, I know that I got my vaccine and then 1 week later, other people were opened up for those vaccines. So I know every week we're going through it, more and more vaccines are becoming available. So to me, 1 week does make a difference because I've seen it happen. And so I know that there are staff who are concerned that have yet to get their first dose. So that's why I think keeping it to that April 5th is a good thing because you still need that 2 weeks after the second dose to boost up that max immunity. And it would even help with the sub issue because if we have 2 people gone, there's still going to be people taking personal days and we don't have that many subs. I think one's going to be used for maternity leave. So that already slims it down even more. It just, to me, it makes sense with logistics. But again, I think we need to almost have 2 different motions, which I don't really know how to do the second one, but I think there can be an interim plan that we just haven't thought of yet. Like we can figure out which teachers are willing to come back earlier than April 5th and maybe get creative as to how to get kids socialized on campus. I just think it's possible. That's me.
I think that too. I'd like to aim for the April 5th for coming in person. And we definitely need to approach the mental health issue that we're hearing about. So I don't know what that would look like, but I'm concerned mental health issues going in with insufficient planning and the teachers not being confident in the plan.
And Maggie, how about you? I think Maggie she was up to talk and she left.
Yeah, sorry, my internet's really shaky today. I'm sorry. And with Gina's point, like having buses roll in on the 5th, but I just keep thinking if there's some kind of rolling start we can do with people who are willing to go on campus early. I'm not comfortable telling you that other staff members are comfortable coming before the 5th because I really feel like they're not. I will be ideally fully vaccinated as well and feel like, yep, I'm there. I can help out and do that. Again, the MCA testing is a big deal. Is there something we can do with that ahead of time? Because the kids have to come and do that on campus this year anyway. Again, let's be creative. Let's think about this. What kind of a rolling start? What kids could come on campus early if we can do that? I don't know exactly what that looks like, but to me, that's worth a conversation as well.
Okay, Rob?
Well, I just think there's just mistrust right now between a lot of the parents and a lot of the teachers. I mean, I don't think it was a surprise. All three parents said we need to get kids back in school. All three teachers said we need to not bring teachers back until April 5th. I mean, there's clearly an issue there, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of what that issue is. I'm living with my kid every day. At the beginning, I would have said, she's fine, right? You've all had her. She's a good student. She cares, but she needs people, and we just can't do that anymore. And you know, we said that we were going to do Win Fridays so we could have these opportunities for kids. Well, I've seen very, very, very few opportunities that have been made for kids. So there's a little mistrust there. And that's what half of the parent emails that we've been getting. Their kids haven't been invited to campus. And so if we say, yeah, trust us, we'll have opportunities to bring to campus. We haven't had a lot of social opportunities. Now, I will say that not everybody's taking advantage when the parent-teacher council sets up an opportunity for kids to go sledding and 10 kids or 20 kids show up. You know, people aren't always necessarily taking advantage of that either. So I see some problems there. But I'm really concerned about saying, you know, we're going to do this, but yet I haven't seen
it. I don't want to put Paula on the spot, but we haven't heard from her, and I'm curious to see what the students' point of view would be, if you don't mind.
So everybody, I was just thinking about all of these different point of views, and personally, it's been very stressful, like all of this mentally and academically, and just knowing, like hearing things like we're going to lose part of the curriculum and we're going to like possibly like go in and then come back. There's a lot of uncertainty there. So if there is an opportunity, like I do really want to go back, but if there's an opportunity that teachers could get more time and not having that, not having so much uncertainty that we have right now, it would be really, really great. But obviously, there's not a perfect solution. And as I said, I know every student wants to go back on campus, but I don't want to feel like I've gotten something and then I've lost it and I'm back at home and I'm back in Zoom class again. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. That was very well put. Thank you, Paula. And that, you know, we are in this conundrum where there is no answer. I mean, I think the only advantage to the 5th is for those teachers, a little more cushion for them to feel that they haven't been on campus in almost a year, be a year next month, right? Been shut down a year next month. And that they would be able to come in and kind of navigate their way through figuring out how to do this. And just starting on the 22nd would be, I mean, for those who haven't done it, and I think they will find, you know, it's not that hard. I've been doing it, and I've gone from, you know, that I just feel it isn't. Maybe I'm crazy, but once I got started, I got started. That's how I felt. And you know, I have a headpiece, and I can use my smartboard, and they could be in the room with my smartboard. I don't need my computers open. By the way, Maggie, I think this whole internet thing is for you because you're in building D, right? Ruh-roh. Yeah, you might be feeling, yeah, thinking on your feet right now. But, you know, I could have my smartboard up. We could have kids in there, and I am confident I can pull that off with Zoomers in there. I know it's hard. COVID's hard. A lot of us have wanted to walk, right? How many times, teachers? How many times have we wanted to walk this year? And I think we're one of the few schools that didn't. I wanted to walk. I think I called Gina Saturday. I'm done. You know, I mean, it's just so stressful. So keep in that mind too, it's very stressful. I don't have any problems thinking my teachers will come in and do it. I don't have a problem coming in the 22nd. I've been doing it for a long time. I pulled the plug and come in and, but they might not be comfortable and might need that 5th. They had that 5th in their mind, you know, so, and I think we can get creative as far as helping other teachers who are worried for, you know, I like Maggie and Gina's idea. I've got a nice science room. In case you haven't noticed, science has good real estate at MSA. I would take my 10th, you know, if they haven't been vaccinated, I've got, you know, people in my building that I could take their kids. If I could teach the first half and then help them with the chemistry kids in my room, they could do their worksheets while the next part's doing. And I think we can, but we just got to make a date and do it. That's how I feel. I feel like Rob's pull, like we can't quit. We got to stop talking and just, we have to be verb at this point. I really feel that. That's my opinion. We just got to do it. And I know that 1 week seems like forever for these kids that are struggling. But if it would help everybody, I don't know. That's my opinion. Any other thoughts on this? Or I'd really like to.
I'm hoping if we can set a date this week, just knowing the date might relieve some of those. I know it's not going to fix the mental health issues, but at least if they know, see where the light at the end of the tunnel is, I'm hoping that will help. And you know, whatever needs to, we need to do something in the interim to address the mental health issues. I don't know what, but
yeah. So I guess, John, so you're comfortable. I know we have had a lot of, at least we're not aware of protocols or anything, but you're confident that we set a date and you'll speak up. No, we can't be ready. We'll be ready to go back. But you could tell staff right now in Zoom, looking out in the audience out there, that we will be ready, because there is kind of some distrust. And I know I've gotten a lot of flack for being vocal about this, a lot of flack. But we don't know what's going on. Honestly, it's not in my head. I don't know what it's going to be like if we get shut down. How do we quarantine? What do we use to wipe with? I know so I don't know. Maybe it's been out there, but I've never been trained. A lot of us. So you're confident when we set a date, you're going to, okay, that's what we need to hear. I need to hear. I know. And there is distrust there too. This is a bad time for people right now.
Then can I also ask, when we resurveyed the families about whether they wanted to be virtual or distance, you know, just to get, you know, after having had some time and things like that, a little bit more information, when we resurveyed the families, was there an option if you were currently opted for virtual to change to hybrid, and if you were currently hybrid, an option to change to virtual? Like, was that something that they could do? So then we have that information. Like Jennifer said, do we have the information about families that may want to change their mind in either circumstance, so that, again, our numbers and our planning are accurate for what the community wants?
Sorry, it took me a while to find my mouse to mute. No, when we did that original survey, we did not survey those parents that wanted to go from distance learning back to in-person. If we're looking at an April 5th start time, that is something that we can survey the parents before spring break, because those numbers I'm sure will change. And then then we have to relay that information to 833, and those routes will then have to be reconfigured so that they can build those routes to accommodate however many families want to sign up. Then we'll have, and of course, then we have to run the numbers again, just to make sure that we have the space available on campus, so we're not running into a classroom that can only hold 10, and now we have 12 students, and you know, we may have to do classroom jungling. I don't know what those numbers are. All of our information and data that we've done is based on the numbers that we had. So I don't know how much movement there would be. So if there's a lot of movement, that may change the way things look. But if that's something that, you know, and ultimately that is a board decision. if a lot of schools have made that, I guess, made that policy that you can go from distance learning to in-person if there's room available. Or once you go distance learning, you're done, just because of the stability that offers. We don't have a policy on that. That's an unknown, because we haven't, we're not even in that scenario. So that's something that if the board is interested in doing, then we will have to send out a new survey to all parents to find out what they would like to do.
I think for myself, I wouldn't want it to be something that would, switch the whole works and like throw a wrench into everything. But I think the idea of offering it as a choice, if there is the space, because not all rooms, some rooms really, the distancing and the things like, they really only can support a certain number of students. And if you're maxed at it, then you're maxed. But I think the option possibly, because things change in a couple of months in everybody's life, a couple of months can make a big difference in any number of ways. So I think, to be fair, if we had parents who were hybrid and wanted to switch to distance, I believe it would also be fair to ask, if there's room allowable, would you, want to switch, to ask them to commit, like, if we have room, or I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to make more work for Mrs. Punsack. I never do. But I thought that was also part of the original, part of our, I guess I misunderstood. I thought that was
and that's something we can have families contact the school, and we put them on a waiting list if you want to go that route. Because I don't, at this point, I don't know if there's going to be a massive number of people that are going to want to do that. And that may be the quickest way is, if somebody wants to go from a distance learning to an in-person, that they call up the school and say, yeah, if there's a spot, I'd really like to get my child on campus. And we can build a waiting list, and then, as spots open up, we can bring people on campus. So that is an option. Yeah, I guess the other thing, and I probably should have said this at the very beginning, is I'm coming from a very different perspective probably than everybody else is, because I basically, other than probably Ken Lacoste, he's been on campus more than I have, just because I've worked some days remotely, but I've been on campus pretty much throughout this entire time. So my mindset is I'm comfortable with being here, with or without people, because visitors come in and I just flip my mask up and then I keep on talking and things are good. And then when they leave, then I can drop my mask and I keep on going. So my perspective that way is a little different, because I haven't been at home or working remotely that often. So, there is a lot of validity to, concerns about the teachers coming on campus. But maybe I share a lot with Rob in that you got to trust the science. And the science says, putting this on and staying distance is going to keep you safe. And the data is out there to prove it. But with that, the other part of that is, we do have students' mental health and we have staff's mental health. And I will share, I think it was Adam that said, I don't want to do the yo-yo. That's the last thing I want to do. We pick one, we get to that, and we go with it. I do not want to go with the yo-yo. And that comes down to enforcement of wearing masks and keeping your distance. Because if you put those safety protocols in place, the statistics show you're not going to have an issue. Now, obviously, if your county spikes, that could be a different scenario.
Well, and I think people were told when they signed up for on distant that was going to be the all year. So I think we need to just figure out, when I'm hearing, oh, let's resurvey and do this, I'm thinking, now we have another variable. Can we just work with the variable that we started with? And then maybe in April, if we can get a list going, then fine. But right now we have people who committed. let's run the show. We haven't even run the show. It's been a year next month. MSA has been closed. So 1 year. So let's go with what we have, go with the people that we said signed up, and we can always adjust that element. Otherwise, we're changing another variable. And I would like to walk away with emotion. So I'm hoping, we can go back to maybe thinking time frame, and then we just build back. And I agree. I don't think the plan's going to be perfect, but and I do think the science is a lot more understood, which I'm grateful for, because we didn't know what was going on in March. So last March. So April 5th. I mean, again, if anyone else has any idea, can we build a motion around April 5th, since we still have not a quorum for the 22nd? I don't want to, unless anyone swung their vote, then let's do it. I know it's disappointing to those for the 22nd, but at least we can start something. Rob?
I think it's very unfair to just say, well, we'll just kick it to April 5th without really having a plan as how we're going to help the kids that are struggling. Because I don't hear, and again, I get it, right? When a bunch of teachers get in a room and they've been tread on all year long, they have worked hard all year long, and they don't feel safe coming back because they haven't always seen the support they need to be safe. However, I don't hear from the teachers a plan other than I'm willing to do this, or I might be willing to do that. I want a solid plan on how we are going to help the kids that need to be it. And we said there was going to be Win Friday opportunities, and very few Win Friday opportunities have happened. So I would like to hear, and maybe we push this off for 3 days and come back with a teacher plan on who is willing to come and help kids. We have how many teachers vaccinated? How many teachers are vaccinated?
We don't know that number because I can't, it's private information, but if my best guess is it's over 50%.
Okay, so then there's no reason that we can't have 50% of the teachers come back to school and start helping kids succeed, whether it's, in what situation, what capacity. And I get that's more work, but I thought the kids were our number one concern here.
When John says vaccinated, I think John means first dose at that level. But yes, I think on Wednesday there is supposed to be a department meeting, and half of it was supposed to be dedicated to talk about hybrid. I say we jettison the department part and we all meet as a staff and see if we can't come up with something. And then we can bring that back to the special meeting and relay that to all of you. I mean, obviously we could share it beforehand, but then maybe we can come to more of maybe it'll be suitable.
I guess a question I have, is there maybe anyone who is not comfortable with the April 5th? Is there any concern there? Because I think what we're talking about still is it April 5th or sooner? And to Rob's point is, those couple few weeks is still some kind of mental anguish for the students. I don't want to trade mental anguish for teachers versus students, because they both are important, and I get that. But we're just kind of trying to press the point of, is there somebody here saying that we're not going to go back? Because if we can all kind of agree, we're going to go back to partial in person at least by April 5th. And the question is, can we do it any sooner in a safe way that honors everybody's feelings and thoughts and concerns? So I don't know if that's emotion in there, but I would like to know, because I think what the parents are really looking for, and if I change my hat from board to parent, is when am I going to be able to get, when are my kids going to be able to go back? And for that mental anguish piece is at least that little hope that, okay, it's this day or it's that date. And I don't want us to flounder from that. I want us to pick a date and kind of stick to it, right? That yo-yo concern. I don't want to go back and forth. It needs to be something that we can say, we are going to stick to this date and we're going to figure out how to make that happen. I get a little concerned, Jana, not with your suggestion, but if we kick it to another meeting and then another meeting and then another meeting, and it's just like, no, that's not what we need right now. We need some clear direction that we're going to stick to a date. And I'm totally fine if the date isn't the date that I would like to see, as long as it's a date that we can all agree with. This is a good date that we want to go march towards, right? So is there anyone, I guess, who has some strong feelings that we can't do at least April 5th? And then we can maybe, to Annie's point, come back with a motion where we can have whatever meeting we need to finalize the motion. Is there, I'm not hearing.
I will say that I think April 5th is the absolute best, and I don't exactly have confidence in that date. So far, our decision to even engage in a hybrid conversation has been dependent on whether or not Washington County has had a case rate that is low enough per the MDE guidelines. And that has only just happened within the past couple of weeks. After large events, particularly around holidays, and I can't see spring break not being considered a holiday. There has been spikes. I am anticipating a spike where the county's numbers will go above the threshold for activating distance learning for all students. And I don't believe that April 5th would be a date where we'd be able to still have students in the classroom based on those guidelines.
So before April 5th, Jennifer, I know, and Rob, absolutely not, you can't even stomach that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Before,
I mean,
I would like to go back before April 5th, March 22nd. That would be fantastic, especially since the governor wants us to go back by March 8th. People saw that on TV. The kids are excited. I don't know why we need to push it out a month past his recommendation. I just think it would be great for the kids to get back. I have been working in the school, elementary, middle, and high school, wearing my mask, washing my hands, and I have been fine. And other teachers I know have been fine, and it's been fine. I think we could do it. I think we could take a risk and do it.
So my family currently has a COVID case. So I'm already having to quarantine for 2 weeks. Even though I've had my first dose of vaccine and I took the test and I'm negative, I still have to quarantine. Me having to come in next week is not an option for John's plan. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I also think that taking a risk with spring break is something that Adam pointed out that is a concern. I feel uncomfortable at having talked to the teachers saying anything before April 5th. Your concerns are valid. You're not wrong. But as somebody who on the board wears a teacher hat, a board hat, a parent hat, I cannot in good confidence say that I would be comfortable saying yes to anything before the 5th.
Well, and I will say I've heard from a lot of my kids in Zoom rooms where they're actually traveling for the first time in a year to see their grandmother. The grandmother's finally vaccinated, and there's some movement with traveling. And so that is one thing I will say with April 5th that I do like, is that we're now 2 weeks after getting back from spring break, versus the 22nd. So that's just how I feel, but that's one advantage. But I think it's more that giving people to go back into that environment, the classroom, and figure out who they are as a teacher at MSA, because it's been shut down for a year. You know, we've not been asked to, we weren't mandated to come back. We weren't told to come back. So many people just, taught from home. And so that gives people the time to come in and say, it's not that bad. I can do this. I found out that, and I'm an old bird learning that kind of stuff. So I don't know. To that point, Maggie, yes.
Well, to Adam's point, I think the best we can do is plan April 5th, as long as the numbers dictate. And if the numbers are up and we can't do it, we can't do it. And then, but we're not transitioning anything because we're already in distance learning. So, and if the numbers are, we can't predict what the numbers are going to be. Adam could be right. Or we can have faith that if people are choosing to travel, they're going to do it safely and we're not going to have a spike. But
Hey, you know,
And I would love
Joe-
to be wrong about those numbers. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love to be wrong, 100%. But unfortunately, the community at large continues to lose my trust. The MSA community, the teachers, the parents, the students, I fully believe that they would follow all the protocols. It is, your next door neighbor. It is the people that are at the grocery stores that have their mask below their chin. Oh, I'm still wearing a mask. I'm following the rules. It's those people that I do not trust.
John, do the MDH guidelines now, and the numbers, COVID numbers, do those still apply? Is that still so that still applies for shutting down schools and all? Okay. I didn't know.
So but there is new guidance on that, in that you're not necessarily, and there's conflicting scenarios. If you are if the county infection rate is below 9 cases per 10,000, then you can go to, and this is the guidance, then you can go to all in person with no restrictions, no requirements. It's still recommended that you go to a 6-foot social distancing with masks, but it's not a requirement anymore at that point, because the transmission rate is less. Now, when the school goes to decide what they want to do, they have changed the guidance so that you can break it down and not use county numbers, but use local numbers. So, and what that means is we would use zip codes of where our students are coming from. And if we don't have students coming from the Stillwater area, even though they're in South Washington County, we would not include any of that data in our determination of do we want to be in distance or hybrid or in person. So they've changed some of the way you can calculate those numbers to be more local rather than county-wide. However, that being said, if the numbers go above 10 for the county, doesn't matter what your local numbers are. If it's a county number that's above 10, you have to go to hybrid. At least that's the guidance that they put out. Now, once again, that could change, but that's the current guidance.
So then may I ask, with that kind of guidance that we can use, like our zip code versus the entire Washington County, would that also allow us then to use the non-Washington County zip codes?
They have not specified that at all. They've just said you're local. And for us, yeah, some of those are non-Washington County zip codes because we draw students, from non-Washington County residents. So, and then it becomes, okay, how, data for me, I would want to do a weighted average, but, we may just do a common average of those zip codes. A weighted average, I think, is more accurate.
Yeah, I think that would be, if you're going to utilize a number and they allow us to use our own, like the COVID county, the specific zip codes for our community, I think that would be much more precise.
Now, if they allow us to do it by zip code, and let's say there's a spike in Cottage Grove, do we have to shut down completely, or can we just, I hate to phrase it this way, but okay, there's a surge in Cottage Grove, the Cottage Grove students can't come on campus?
Sounds like a John question to me.
Yeah, there's not that there isn't an exemption that way, but I haven't seen that or heard anybody talk about limiting it to geographical areas that way. It's more, this is your local number, and that's what you have to go with. And you can't exclude, no, I don't want this one for now. You guys stay home so everybody else can come. That would not be equitable for everybody. And that's the other part, you got to fit in the equity piece. So what that would mean is if you shut down, you shut down for everybody. You don't get to exclude people.
All right, back to where we were, circling the wagons. Do we feel we can at least get a motion out of this tonight? It would be nice for people to know and for us to come back. And you can tell me to go pound sand, no. If most of you, I'm 1/9 the vote. So the rest of you say go pound sand, I'll listen. But I do think we need to make a decision. We need to just make a decision and do it. I think enough time.
Michelle, can you read the last motion we had made about this?
I can, if you all have like a couple of ideas you want to talk about so I can get a minute to look through my files.
Yeah, that was back, I think November, Michelle.
I'll fill in a little bit of time for you if you don't mind. So currently, if you choose not to do anything, then the plan is, and what's on the book and what's been approved, is that at the March 16th meeting is when you're going to decide what to do for your learning scenario come April 5th. That's a motion that's been approved. So that's still on the books, so to speak. So if you do nothing, that is still there. Obviously, you can make another motion to, that you're going to change course or whatever. But if you don't choose to do anything, that would be by default the next time you're going to look at this. And there was nothing said in that motion. It's just to determine what you're going to do. So, if there's not anything made, any motion made, that's the default, which is still open-ended.
What about Rob's point that we want to get something for those kids that are struggling? Do we want to talk about that? Get something that we could do now for the kids?
I do think that is significant. Again, I think the delay is significant. Those couple of weeks, we need it, but at the same time, the students need, you know what I mean? We still have to bridge that. We're trying to bridge the gap. So I think that is an important discussion.
Because I think we have to. I mean, governor said March 8th, right?
Yes.
Which really is our
Fridays
spring
is not in
break.
compliance with the way we wrote the Win Fridays. They're not in compliance with the idea of in-person learning. We specified that was enrichment. So
Right.
unless there's something else with it, it doesn't count.
So I like Gina's idea of your Wednesday meeting, putting that to use on, let's talk about who's willing to come in, how we're doing it. Annie's got some great ideas about how we could, shuffle things around, get kids into school, not transportation necessarily, leave that to the full blown opportunity of April 5th, but have everybody planning, practicing. I beg and plead for the administration to train. I've heard all too often that teachers are trying to help each other. It's time for the two high school and middle school administrators to start training. Here are the best practices. Here's how we're going to make hybrid work. We have advanced degrees. We have been taking summer courses. These are the best practices that are out there. This is how we do it. We've got time to do all of those things, and then come back with the plan, and then I can vote for April 5th if we're making a decision that's best for kids.
So I'm going to throw one bit of information as we're talking about Win Fridays. There are only 2 Win Fridays before April 5th, and they are March 5th and March 26th. The rest of the weeks are shortened weeks, so they do not have Win Fridays in them.
I'll
But-
just add,
Sorry.
go ahead, Gina, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but we don't have to keep it to win Fridays. Like I would personally, I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, so I might be the only person out there, but I still think going to the staff, we could figure out something where we don't have to stick with just win Fridays. I could work it with my class. It would be a challenge, but I would do it where I could take on some of those struggling kids, still teach my class. You know, we could start figuring out those Zoom issues with like limited numbers of teachers being there, but still handling, like I have 3 to 4 kids, if not 0 in some of my classes. So I have room. I have a huge room. My room is big. And so I still think taking it to the staff meeting and then expanding our minds beyond Win Friday. I think there's a capacity there.
I was just gonna say, I can support this April 5 because it's a date that we're marching towards, right? So if we come out of this with just an agreement that April 5 is the date and we're not gonna let that slide, barring something beyond our control, then that's the mental shift that we all need to make, which says it's no longer this date off in the future that we're gonna be, you know, it's April 5th, which means you need to go back and get your classrooms in order or teachers trained or whatever those things are, because I think that's what we're lacking. It was always this nebulous thing that was outside of our control, and we kind of could, we all could collectively shrug our shoulders and say we can't do anything, the numbers don't allow, but the numbers have changed, right? And so now we're in a spot where we need to address that fact and kind of own up to the rest of the plan, which is on our responsibility. So I can support an April 5 one. I would love to see it sooner, just to hold a date, right? So. And I love the ideas that we're talking about here. That's what we need to do and we can do with collective minds, figure out how can we do some things between now and then that'll help ease that gap, right?
May I ask one last question? And it is related to being able to do some of these creative things that I know we can think of in brainstorming ways. I'm personally volunteering the information that by the time we are looking at some of these, I will have had, before spring break, I will be fully vaccinated. So, you know, coming back, there are some of us on staff who just kind of had a lucky lottery moment in terms of time. And so we are a little ahead of the vaccination schedule. The thing that I also need to know about that, and I think the staff will too, in terms of equitability, what about the idea of our before and after school care? I want to know, you know, because I mean, I know that we have students who are busing. There might be families who would be willing to participate or, you know, would be willing to do some of these things that normally they would be a busser, but for like a couple of weeks, they'll work it out. So what about the possibility of because there's that sort of caveat about first responder before and after school care and stuff like that. So where are we on that, just so that we know that we're not limiting based on circumstances that are solvable? I know it feels like it's a minor thing, but for me, it's the first thing I thought of is, what if somebody can't just automatically be dropped off at 9:15? Like, where's our before after school care? Why care? Where are we at on some of those? Just to know.
I think that the plan says we won't have any before or after care. I read now the plan that's on the website is very skeleton-y. It doesn't have all the mandates, all, you know, things that are required to have for those 3 scenarios. But I think it does say on the website that we won't have any, right, John? We don't have one after.
Well, yeah, there's not a requirement to do that, and that's something that we do not have in place at this point in time. And part of that is because of the contact tracing portion of it as well.
You see, those are kind of the things we have to think about. Like, if we have kids in, this is the only worry I have about that, by the way, because we have to have kids sit in the same place, the same time. Otherwise, we can't otherwise it's chaos, because we have to be very, very, so like for my classroom, we'd have to do different, you know, at my classes, when we finally I get my kids, I cannot wait. They'll have to sit in the same place every time, every period. But if we start offering all this, Gina, I just, you know, that's my worry, is like, oh my gosh, now I have to come up with all these, you know, seating places. And I mean, listen, I got to tell you, parents, I know my heart breaks. I'm like, get them in March 8th. Let's do it. That's how I felt. And then listening to some, like, we're working 70. I'm teaching 70 hours worth of teaching. So it's like, I could just see the heart pains of some of the teachers back there, especially because they haven't really been in the school and done things. But we got to do it. We cannot we cannot walk out of here without committing to our kids. That just can't happen. It just can't. I just hope we can. But Win Fridays are great for, maybe we get struggling kids in on Win Friday. We just have to be smart how it's the logistics of getting seating charts and all. That's the only thing I worry about with contractors. It's a really delicate procedural. It's like working for the FDA, honestly. You have to be really militant on where you put people and how you do it. But let's do a Wednesday staff. Is everyone in agreement that, Gina's idea where we have that Wednesday staff, John, we shift it to this. And then should we call a special meeting and report back? Or John said, don't even bother till the 16th, but I just feel like parents are that's not good. We can't go with not answering to our community that long. That's how I feel. It's not right. What do you
I
think?
agree with you. I think we should also have another special meeting after that Wednesday staff, because maybe we won't have any sufficient ideas, and at least we need to have another discussion then. I don't think we should wait until the 16th of March.
No, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine having a kid being a parent and then hearing we're not going to meet again until the 16th. It's not right. I feel.
I feel like they can have the meeting on Wednesday. They could give us a preliminary report, and maybe we meet on Friday. And
I could set the meeting up for Friday. Is Friday work for people? I gotta look. I gotta go grab my phone. You know what? I don't.
While Annie is grabbing her phone, the school has 2 counselors, one for the high school, one for the middle school. There's been a lot of conversations tonight about student mental health. Are these 2 counselors being fully utilized, or do they have capacity to help some struggling students who maybe haven't reached out?
I'd like to maybe invite them to the Friday meeting so that we can they can give input. It sounds like one of our biggest sticking points is the mental health issue. I think we need to invite them to the meeting.
Will they be in the Wednesday meeting? They will. Okay.
Yes. So how, I guess we'll just do a show of hands. I think if we were in a rounded table, that's what it would be. And that is what, the 26th? We make it maybe early. Fridays are rough, man. I go downhill pretty quick. By the time I'm done with my week.
Yeah, what is everybody's availability like a little earlier in the day?
Yeah.
Like not 6 p.m., like a little earlier.
Because literally I'm in bed by 8, literally. So first of all, raise of hands available on the 26th. Let's start there. All right. Yeah.
Depends on the time. Well, because that's the COVID shot day, so I don't know. And my shot's not until like 2:45, and I have to sit there for extra half hour.
Yeah. So what would work for you then, Maggie? You think around, maybe it is 6. I would do it just to get it to go for it.
5 would probably be fine.
5 o'clock?
Maybe 4. It depends on.
Yeah, we kind of have to announce it, so we can't like wishy-washy on the
nope.
special meeting,
Yep, I know.
4-ish, quote unquote.
I think 5. I want to give Maggie and anyone else that needs to have their shot.
Yeah, I get it. No, I'm just
if you're getting it.
Right.
That's another focal point here, so takes precedence.
All right, so here we are again. Okay, I'm like losing track. You know how I do this. You've all known me by now. So we are talking, okay, see, I'm like 26th here. 26th at 5 o'clock is what, Maggie, did you say 5, right? 5 o'clock, yes, raise your hand. Can you make it? Okay, should we set a special meeting and then come back to the board and then maybe think about it, and then maybe we can get a motion out of there. I don't know. I think we need a motion. I think waiting until March 16th is not a good idea.
I have just a comment I'd like to make. So we've been sitting on the last week's board summary just because we knew that we were changing things potentially. And so but in my mind, I wanted to send something out, maybe out even as late as tonight so what do I say on that? Because I can say that we're going to have another meeting on Friday, but that sounds a little weak, and not to pick on us, but if I was a parent and I saw the email that says we're going to have another meeting to have some more discussions. So I'm okay, but so it sounds like if I were to summarize, I would say we had a discussion tonight. We're leaning towards this April 5, but we're going to have some meetings on Wednesday and then a final kind of meeting on Friday. Is that right?
Now, if I wrote the agenda to say discuss, approve on Friday, then if we don't come up with a motion, it's still okay, right? But if I don't have discuss, approve, then we can't even make a motion. Am I right with that? So I'll put a discuss, approve for, April 5th, or if something changes, and then that way we at least can approve something on Friday if we get there. All right, make sense? Okay, well, we're gonna just take a little, yeah, split. See, this is what it's like, people. Boards are doing it all over. And Gina told me you can't do abstention, because I tell you, this is the one time I'm like, I don't know. You can't vote abstention, Cardenas. I said, all right, I got to make a decision.
Michelle,
Because,
can
what's that?
you send us maybe all the motions we made about COVID, or
They're on the website, Cody.
they are? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot to ask any of us to do right now after all the hours we log in. So it's November is our latest, I believe, on the website and under the minutes, approved minutes. So yeah, I think that.
And the one in
that's kinda-
November has waiting, checking in at the 16th meeting. It also has the one where we defined the Win Fridays. Both of
So
those.
the
motions are
16th
on
is
that
the one. Yeah, that's the one. Because I think ultimately we really need to speak to March 8th anyway. We've got to do something. We got to get kids in on some fashion. The governor, he has pushed our hand, and we need to do something. So that maybe could be Wednesday. We discuss how that happens. But I guess I want to say this, and again, I've been beaten up pretty good, pro and con actually, for my vocalness on a lot of things. Like, I don't know what we're doing once we get in there, but I really feel it can't just be teaching staff too, John. I mean, can we get all hands on deck right now? Because the counselor point, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, because you come back to me saying, okay, the teachers need to do more work. Like, we're taxed. I don't know. I'll do it because I love my kids, but we need all of us on board on Wednesday, not just the teachers have to do stuff. You know how I quote that in staff. What are you telling us? The teacher needs to do more work. That's my favorite quote, and highly irritating to everybody but teachers. But that seems to always be the rhetoric. And I don't want to be mean. I'm not trying to be snappy, but it is the rhetoric. The teachers need to be more work, do work. And so we are very divided at MSA, I feel. And we feel like we just got to start getting back to everyone feeling like we can pull the load. That's how I feel. But I'm a cranky old Southern California girl, so this might be me. All right. So what we're going to do is, we did discuss. I'll set up a special meeting. Gina will get the link. I'll get Justin to do all that. And then hopefully John will shift our Wednesday meeting. We'll come back on Friday. And I would love, personally, as your chair of the board, to come out with a motion for our families who have been waiting, and for our teachers who need to know, even though they're scared, they're very scared. But I think, unfortunately, we can't suffer from analysis paralysis any longer. We just need to do it. We need to do it. It's not going to be fun. And I think by June, we're going to find out it wasn't so bad. That's how I feel. All right. Any other wrap-up questions? Shall we adjourn, Board of Directors? I hope so. So motion to adjourn. Do I have, I'm going to go ahead and move it. Move to motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
This is Adam. I'll second.
All right. So roll call, yes. or no, or abstention. No abstention. Can't do that here. Gina says. Dan Ellingston,
Yes.
Cody Schneid,
Yes.
Michelle Kukowski,
Yes.
Gina Albers,
Yes.
and Adam Bartz,
Yes.
Robert Kruger,
Yes.
Jennifer Bartle,
Yes.
Maggie Burgraff,
Yes.
Annie Cardenas. Yes. All right. Sweet dreams, my board, of school and busy hallways once again. See you later.
Good night.